Chapter 14. Li Shudong ascended the throne as quickly as possible, calmed down the civil strife caused by Gao family, then allowed his brothers to take their imperial concubine mothers or concubine fathers out of the palace. He also held a grand funeral for the emperor, announced the abolition of taxes for 3 years, and gave favors to the administrative sections. All the people in the country benefited, and they praised Six Prince's filial piety, calling him a wise monarch. He's just ascended the throne, and they're already calling him a wise monarch. Zhu Yunsheng shook his head while packing his bags. Li Shudong stared heavily at him. Then he asked for 1,000th time, "Concubine father, do you really want to go? You're not staying to help your child manage the palace." "Manage the inner palace? Who'd like to do such a boring job? I want to roam the world and reach its end." In reality, he was just setting off to find his long-lost lover. In the past few years, he'd turned the palace around, but he was nowhere to be seen. He'd even had the whimsical thought that the man might be a eunuch, so he'd personally examined all the tall and handsome eunuchs. The wolf cub had almost torn all those people apart. Then he repeatedly warned Zhou Yunsheng that even if he felt lonely, he shouldn't pressure the servants into sex. "If concubine father finds it really unbearable, you can always come find me," and so on. Zhou Yunsheng was rendered genuinely speechless at that berating. "Concubine father, please stay. Your child has just ascended the throne. He doesn't understand anything. If you don't stay, I'll be frightened." Li Zhidong pulled Zhu Yunsheng into his arms, his hot breath printing on the sushuoxi on his neck. But Zhu Yunsheng continued to pack, unmoved. Then he suddenly felt a heavy blow to his neck, and he fainted. In the end, this was the son he'd raised. He'd never prepared for an attack from the person. What does the wolf cub plan to do? Did he feel that his father's ability was too powerful and unpredictable, so he wanted to secretly remove him? This was his last thought before he fainted. When he woke up, he was lying on the dragon bed in Yangxian Temple. He only wore crimson, translucent clothing, and his wrists and ankles were buckled with cold iron shackles. The long chains were fixed to the huge pillars. He couldn't shake them off. "Am I under house arrest?" He frowned, his lips slowly pulling up into a sneer. "Concubine father, are you awake?" Li Shudong suddenly appeared in the hall, wearing a big red robe. His appearance was carefully arranged. He looked extraordinarily handsome. He seemed to have just drunk a lot of wine. His bronze skin was flushed. His eyes were misty. "You got married today?" The wolf cub was 18 years old. It was time to marry. Plus, he was the new emperor. He needed to choose a minister's daughter or garçon to stabilize the court and fill the harem as urgently as possible. Zhu Yunsheng pondered while looking at his surroundings. "Yes, I'm married today." Li Shudong was tensed and covered in sweat. Before he came in, he drank several wine bottles to embolden himself. But when he saw his father looking around, so confused, his self-control was pushed to the brink of collapse. All he wanted to do now was pounce on him and devour him. Zhu Yunsheng raised his eyebrows. "Which child?" Li Shudong didn't answer. He slowly poured 2 cups of wine and brought them to the bed, then quietly said, "Concubine father, please drink." This was Heijin wine. He'd wanted to bring up concubine father's upper body to drink together, but he didn't dare touch him. "What kind of poison is in the wine?" Zhu Yunsheng had completely lost his trust in the wolf cub. This sentence stunned Li Shudong. His dark eyes quickly turned red. He questioned in grief and indignation. "Concubine father, that's what you think of me? You think I will harm you? If not, why am I here?" Zhu Yunsheng shook the shackles on his wrist. If you didn't try to leave me, I would never do something like this to concubine father. Father, you're my life. If you leave now, how can I live? Even from an early age, he had a vague feeling that his existence was tied to concubine father. If he doesn't stay with concubine father, he would completely disappear. Ryunjang frowned. He had just opened his mouth to ridicule when he saw his son suddenly take a drink of wine, pinch his jaw open, and kiss him. The spicy liquor fell directly into his mouth. He quickly stretched out his tongue to reject, but when his tongue touched the wolf cub's tongue, he felt his soul tremble, and a familiar throbbing and burning sensation instantly spread through his body. Li Shudong was also very excited, but he'd grown up 18 years without this kind of experience. He was frantic. He only knew how to pull open their robes and cover concubine father. He constantly bit and sucked, rubbing and kneading, pinching and caressing. No rhythm. His lower body was in pain, but he couldn't find a way to vent. He could only intuitively seek friction and sob. Concubine father, I'm burning up. Quickly, help me. He was panting, covered in sweat. His voice was pitifully pleading. I never thought my lover would be so inexperienced in this life. This is simply... Jun Cheng could no longer ponder on his feelings. He'd been empty for so long, and he also couldn't restrain himself. He wrapped his legs around the old wolf's waist and mimed what he should do with his fingers. Li Shidong was enlightened. He eagerly went in for the conquest. 2 hours later, Li Shidong was wiping up concubine father. His expression was satisfied, but also apprehensive. Zhuyan Sheng had covered his face and hadn't said anything for a long time. Then he laughed and laughed, some more muttering to himself. I actually raised you as my son. I raised you as my son. This situation really made him want to laugh and cry. The person he'd been looking for was actually right by his side, glued to his side almost every day, always shouting out, concubine father. In retrospect, the situation was strangely cool, but Li Shudong misunderstood him. In his interpretation, his words meant, I actually raised you, this beast, as my son. I really let a wolf into my house. I have no sense. He was afraid, but he didn't regret it. He tried to hug his concubine father. Everything will be okay over time. Concubine father will see my good sides. He could only think this to comfort himself. He brought himself closer, like a pup trying to nest, but Zhuyan Sheng pushed him away and denounced, Go to the side. From his son to his lover, his treatment naturally had to be different. A son could be spoiled, but a lover needed strict training. You fool, did you think you could trap me with these weak chains? He casually fiddled a bit, and the cold iron cast iron shackles broke into pieces. The fetters on his ankles faced the same fate. Then he got up and dressed. Li Shudong had never thought to trap him for life. He only wanted him to hold him for a few hours, so he couldn't run away. With concubine father's ability, who could trap him? Li Shudong felt more fear, but he didn't dare to maltreat him. He quickly knelt down and clung tightly to his concubine father's legs, eyes red, and pleaded, Concubine father, don't go. I was wrong. I just love you so much. Please give me a chance, okay? I'll give you whatever you want. Wealth, power, the throne, the world, and even my life. Concubine father, you rescued me from misery. You gave me self-esteem and hope. You taught me martial arts and protected me from harm. No one has ever treated me so well, so I want to repay you the same way. Father, didn't you say that we have to depend on each other? Currently, Li Shidong, who was feared for his bloodthirstiness on the battlefield and his decisiveness in the court, was like a lost child, crying pitifully. His eyes even showed a hint of deep fear. It seemed like losing his father was the most despairing thing in the world. This was his lover. He'd lived such a humble and desperate and lonely life that he'd unreservedly given him his heart for just a bit of love. If Yuan hadn't brought him back to the Zishan palace, how miserable would he be right now? Would he have been able to grow up healthy and safely? Thinking of this, his anger instantly vanished. Kicked the wolf cub and smiled. You're already 18, but still haven't progressed. Get up. I always keep my word. Concubine father, you're not leaving? Li Shudong still clung to his legs, his expression pitiful. Who was under house arrest, and who was the capturer again? Why does the wolf cub look more miserable than me, the victim? Zhu gave a sweet smile, then lifted his foot to step on his face, but he'd forgotten that he didn't have any shoes, so the wolf cub took advantage of this and grabbed his ankle and licked his foot thoroughly from toe to heel. What's the use of living so many lifetimes? This habit of liking willful people has not changed. Zhu frowned for a moment, then gave a happy smile. Li Shudong was observing his face. When he saw his true smile, he knew that the crisis had really passed. He hurriedly got up and hauled concubine father in his arms, saying nothing but refusing to let go. He was scared he'd change his mind. The emperor became a very controversial figure. He never got a wife or had children, and he had an extremely close relationship to his concubine father. They were simply inseparable. The ministers often threatened to impeach him, but even in the face of losing the throne, he refused to alienate Qi. However, he was very handy in governmental affairs, and in just 5 years, Dayang country was thriving, so the courtiers gradually quietened down. When Shishujie died, he passed the throne to an adopted prince and followed him the next day. His relationship with Shishujie was often criticized by the courtiers, and it was the most talked about gossip in the marketplace. Several times he would run out of the imperial court just to run back in a moment later to continue dealing with political affairs, leaving the courtiers baffled. So after he died, a rumor spread in the palace. It said that if the old emperor didn't see Shujie for more than 2 hours, he couldn't restrain the fear in his heart and had to run back to the temple to confirm that Shujie was still there. Only then could he have peace of mind. If it was the person you loved most in the world, wouldn't most people be able to endure being separated for 2 hours? The citizens couldn't understand such a morbid love, but their hearts couldn't help yearning for that strong love. The old emperor probably loved Shishujie miserably, right? Just like the emperor father loved Gao Min. His emperor father loved Gao Min. The Li royal family seems to be particularly vulnerable to infatuation. After hearing this rumor, Li Shuyan, who was punished to forever guard the emperor's throne, gave a satirical smile.